The day had finally come. Yosu, astride a humble donkey, made his entrance into the teeming city of Jerusalem. Yosu's journey was no ordinary one. It was a journey that had been anticipated by many, and he was greeted by a sea of faces, all of whom had heard of his miracles and were drawn to his divine aura. The crowd that gathered was massive, but Yosu, ever the calm and composed figure, requested something unusual. He asked for the freedom to walk the city streets alone. Naturally, one would expect such a request to fall on deaf ears amidst the clamor and excitement. Surprisingly, however, the crowd acquiesced. They held Yosu in such high regard, believing him to be the Son of God, that they granted him his wish. Yosu dismounted his donkey and began to wander the labyrinthine streets of Jerusalem, his eyes taking in the vibrant sights and sounds of the city. He walked through the bustling market, observing the transactions and interactions that took place. What he saw, however, was not pleasing. Deception and abuse were rampant, casting a dark shadow over the otherwise lively marketplace. Yet, he chose to remain silent, absorbing the realities of a flawed humanity. He was there to help, to guide, and to heal, but he knew that his mission required patience and understanding. He saw the potential for goodness in every individual despite their shortcomings. He saw a world that was decadent and malicious, but he also saw a world that was capable of change. As the midday sun reached its zenith, Yosu found what he had been searching for, a place for celebration. A sense of anticipation filled the air as he prepared for the next part of his journey. The stage was set, and Yosu, with his unwavering spirit and undeniable charisma, was ready to make his mark on the city of Jerusalem. Seeking solace and support, Yosu made his way to his uncle, Joseph of Arimathea's home. The reunion was a heartfelt one. It had been years since they had last seen each other. Uncle Joseph, a man of wealth and influence, welcomed Yosu with open arms, as did John, a loyal follower who had journeyed with Yosu from the river where he had been baptized. Over a humble meal, Yosu shared tales of his travels, his miracles, and the growing number of followers who were drawn to his teachings. Amidst the laughter and reminiscing, Yosu made an unexpected request. He wished to host a grand wedding banquet at the local inn, a place of celebration and joy. He asked his uncle for the necessary coins to make this event possible. Uncle Joseph, taken aback at first, agreed to help, but he had one condition. Yosu must return to him after the banquet. He wished to hear more about his nephew's journey, his teachings, and his plans for the future. Yosu agreed readily, promising to return after the festivities. The question of whose wedding was to be celebrated remained in the air. Yosu simply smiled mysteriously, adding an air of intrigue to the upcoming celebration. His uncle and John could only speculate, their curiosity piqued. With the promise of a grand celebration, Yosu left his uncle's home, coins in hand. He returned to the inn, sharing the good news with the innkeeper. The inn, usually bustling with patrons, was soon to be filled with the joyous laughter and merriment of a wedding celebration. As he left the inn, Yosu turned back for a moment, looking at the place that would soon be filled with his followers, celebrating a wedding whose bride and groom were still unknown. He smiled, a knowing smile that hinted at the surprise that was yet to come. With a knowing smile, Yosu left his uncle's house, the promise of a grand celebration hanging in the air. Back at the inn, Yosu relayed his uncle's promise to the innkeeper and set about preparing for the banquet. The innkeeper, recognizing the weight of Joseph's wealth, immediately agreed to host the wedding feast. However, he expressed a concern. His wine supply was alarmingly low, and the crowd gathering outside was enormous. Yosu reassured the innkeeper, instructing him to serve the water from his barrels to the guests. The innkeeper, though skeptical, complied. As the water-filled jugs were distributed among the crowd, a profound transformation took place. To the astonishment of all, the clear liquid within the jugs morphed into a rich, robust wine. Yosu had performed another miracle right there in the bustling inn. The banquet then kicked off in earnest, with fresh food and fruits being served in generous quantities, as befitted the occasion. The atmosphere was jubilant, the wine flowing and laughter echoing off the inn's stone walls. Amidst the revelry, a voice rang out questioning the identity of the bride and groom of this impromptu wedding feast. With a knowing smile, Yosu announced the bride's name, Magda. The crowd erupted in applause, delighted by the beauty of the bride. However, not everyone shared in the joy. The apostles, taken aback by Yosu's audacity, looked on with a mix of confusion and anger. Yet in the midst of this emotional whirlwind, Magda felt a radiant happiness envelop her. As the celebration continued, the guests lost themselves in song, their spirits buoyed by the miraculous wine. The air was thick with joy and the inn echoed with the sounds of merriment. In the midst of this, unnoticed by the revelers, Yosu quietly withdrew. With a final glance at the joyous scene he had created, he slipped away into the night. His smile, still lingering from the wine and the joy, faded as he set his sights on his next destination. His journey was far from over. The gloomy temple of Jerusalem awaited him. The temple stood before him, a somber contrast to the joyous scenes he had just left behind. The towering edifice, bathed in the soft glow of twilight, exuded an aura of solemn reverence. Its stone walls, etched with the passage of time, held countless stories of faith and devotion, yet the air was thick with a foreboding silence, a stark departure from the merry clamor of the inn. Yosu, still slightly dizzy from the wine, stepped over the threshold, his footfall echoing ominously through the hallowed halls. His eyes, accustomed to the bright festivity, took a moment to adjust to the dimly lit interiors. The scent of incense hung heavy in the air, mingling with the faintly discernible aroma of age-old rituals and ancient lore. As the temple doors closed behind him, Yosu's smile faded. The echoes of celebration were replaced by an eerie silence, leaving us to wonder what awaits Yosu within the gloomy temple.